Once you enter your budget information into CenterPoint, there are various ways to print the budget. Methods of printing the budget that are covered in separate videos are printing the budget from the budget entry tool and also including budget information on a financial analysis. This video will cover printing the budget from our standard reports. Those standard reports can be found underneath Reports and Reports and under the section called Financial Statements. So I'm going to click on the plus sign to open that. The two reports that we're going to cover in this video are the Statement of Revenue and Expenditures and the balance sheet. You can, however, print budget information on an income statement, and that process is similar to the Statement of Revenues and Expenditures. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Statement of Revenue and Expenditures, and as you can see, the variations that are included in the program by default also include variations that have the budget on them already. So I'm going to start with one of those variations. As I highlight it on the right-hand side, I'm going to choose the fund whose budget I want to print, the period for what I consider my current period. So I'm going to choose just this month. We're going to determine the level of detail that you want on the report with the other filters. And at the bottom, you'll see that I have 3 filters that if they're not on your list of filters, you might want to add them if you're working with budgets. To add them, you would go to More Items. You would find them on the list, put a check mark in them, and click OK, and they would be on the list of filters for you. The first two are filters or selections that allow me to control the way that the variance between actual and budget information is calculated. So do you want any variances calculated as budget minus actual or actual minus budget? So you get to choose, and you could have it be different for the expense accounts than you have for the revenue accounts. The third one is the selection of which budget you want to include in this report, because you could have several budgets out there. If I don't select something, I've selected my particular budget here, but if I don't select something, the system will look for whether or not there is a default budget for that fund, and that will be the budget that it will use. I'm going to click Preview to bring up the report. Now you can see my report already has some actual information, and it also has some budget information on it. The budget that is being shown is the annual budget. That might not be the budget information that you want. So you have some options when you're selecting what budget, what information to include. If I go to the Columns tab, you can see that these are the columns that are already selected. But if I go to the Available tab, you'll see that there are additional columns that can be added. The 3 sections of budget accounts or budget columns that can be added are the annual budget amounts. And you can see that I've already included annual budget amount and the annual budget variance. Okay. If I scroll down, the next section of budget information that I could include is current budget. And that's not on my report right now. If I included that, what it would be is the same as my current period actuals. So it would only show me my May 2025 budget information. If I scroll down a little bit further, you can see that we also have year-to-date budget information. Now I'm showing my year-to-date actual, but not my year-to-date budget. And if I had included that on the report, I would see a column for year-to-date budget that would be January through May. So you can remove and add on any columns that you like. You could also remove all of the other columns except for the annual budget just to print out the budget information. So I'm just going to remove all of the other columns besides the account and the annual budget. And when I click refresh on that, you'll see that it allows me to just use this tool to print out the budget without doing an actual to budget comparison. Now, if you make any changes when you click close, the system is going to ask you whether or not you want to save it to your favorites. So you can say yes, so that you wouldn't have to reconfigure this report if you're not going to use it again. You can say no. The other report that you can include budget information on is the balance sheet. And as you can see, there is already a variation of the balance sheet that already includes the budget. I'm going to go ahead and make a selection of the same period, so this month, and I'm going to choose the same fund, and I'm going to choose the same budget to be looking at. I'm also going to choose my level of detail that I want to include on the balance sheet. When I click Preview on the balance sheet, you'll see that I just have the actual information, the actual column, the budget column. I've included a variance column and then what percent of the total budget it is. If I go to columns, there are additional columns that can be added to this report. However, we are limited on budget. So there's only one section of budget columns to add, and those are for the same period as your actuals. So when we run a balance sheet, we don't run a balance sheet January through December. If we want to know what December balances are, we just go ahead and run it for December. So that's what I've done here. I've run it for May. And so with the budget, that's also the balance that I want to see. So it's not a date range, it's just that ending period balance. So there's only one set of budget columns that can be added. Once again, just like with the statement of revenues and expenditures, though, if I'm just using this tool to print the budget, I could remove all of the other columns except for the account column and the budget column. And then I could click refresh, and I could then use this just to print out my budget. Again, if I click close, it's going to ask me if I want to save this. So if you want to reuse it in the future, you could say yes. If not, then you can say no.